Tonight, the legal team for a former Morgan County teacher who's accused of having group sex with students says they now plan to use a mental illness defense.
Brittany Fortenberry's attorneys are now asking the court to appoint 2 to 3 psychologists or psychiatrists to assess her mental competence. According to the court records, the defense argues they believe that Fortenberry has a mental illness, but that would need to be confirmed by qualified experts.
Fortenberry is facing 29 charges after several young boys came forward alleging the former teacher drugged them, had sex with them on multiple occasions.
The Department of Child Services reached out to parents of potential victims after the initial arrest, and that led to even more charges.
Excuse me?
Tonight.
Okay, shalom, shalom. Kwam Yasha'Allah, Koholoyimla Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai, Bahashim Chahakodash. Double honors to our apostles and elders, the great millstone who rule well, and that by the Spirit taught us this beautiful truth. And just want to take the water to all the H.I.M and Akhwaf that's out here sincerely keeping the laws, the statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai to the best of their ability. This is Yachanan the Waf, just coming at you with another quick lesson and praying that it's edifying by the Spirit. And as you can see, you know, the Edomite, the Shedamite,
tonight the legal,
she done lost her damn mind out here, man, because you've been seeing too many stories on this. These are, I'm talking about not bad looking so-called white women. They in these schools. And come on, bro, we talking about, that's why women shouldn't even be around young men like that. I mean, it's inevitable. I mean, it's going to happen because those young guys, shit, I can remember going to school, shit, with Jake. Jake was, you know, knocking. Matter of fact, one of my, friends and shit ended up getting a damn teacher pregnant, man. You know, you know what I'm saying? But hey, those women, they want to feel young again. They kind of don't grow up anyway. And then they coming across these young Jake, you know what I'm saying? Which are young men, really. They're trying to act as if they're kids, you know what I'm saying? Because, you know, only here in America can you be a damn kid until you're considered to be a damn kid until you're 25. I mean, I'm 21, so to speak, or 18 rather, you know. And even at 18, they still consider you to be a child, you know. But these are young men, man, and hormones are working and raging. And these women, you know, they're seeing these young men, and it's just not a good look, man. And then some of these teachers, they dress so provocative. It's just not a good look. That shit is going on everywhere. And it's not just with the so-called white women. It's so-called black women, you know, Hispanics, Native American women. They're getting caught up too. But it's mainly these so-called white women. If you've been noticing, with the bestiality, a lot of so-called white women have been getting caught up, you know, sleeping with damn dogs. You've been hearing about those stories the past 5 years, like real strong. Like, so it's like, okay, so what the fuck are they doing? What the fuck are you thinking about? You know, but that comes with self-control. You know, I think that word goes off into incontinent. Matter of fact, that's I'm driving right now, so kind of roughly paraphrasing scriptures, but that's one of the things that was spoken of in 2 Timothy chapter 3, as far as the end days. Perilous times shall come, and it gave a list of things that will be happening in the end days, and one of those things is incontinent. And if I'm not mistaken, that word incontinent, it goes off into self-control. You know, people would be lovers of their own selves. And I don't know how you thinking you're gonna get away with stuff like this, because these dudes, they're gonna talk. That's what they do. Young dudes, man, they about bragging rights. They gonna talk. They gonna tell it, and then they find every goddamn thing so goddamn silly and funny anyway. That's like a huge joke. You know, you hooking up with these young men. You setting up and taking them to a park somewhere. And you think you got text messages that's going to, because, you know, this lady, I remember this story. Now, all of a sudden, Esau is trying to make it seem as if this bitch is crazy. No, that bitch is not crazy. She's probably a damn nymphomaniac, but she's not crazy. You don't think this bitch didn't know what she was doing? Here you go. She had to go to school to get a teaching job, right? So throughout school, I'm not to say to them, you know, there's not no crazy ass people that, that's out here that just got regular jobs. But we're talking about, okay, well, did she exhibit any of this craziness any other time? But that's Esau, Edom, you know, and that goes off into that Psalms chapter 73 as well. Where it talks about verse 5, I think it is. They're not in trouble as other men. That's the reason why they can run that defense that, okay, she was insane. You got 29 counts. You dealing with you dealing with multiple little boys. Well, I ain't gonna say little boys because, like I said again, there are young men. You know. So it's really, we get it, man. We're not ignorant of Satan's devices. We understand that had this been a so-called black woman and she had that many counts, all that shit would be plastered all over the news. They're not trying to hear no motherfucking crazy. I need to you know, and that shows you too how wicked this place is. You know, it just shows you how wicked this place is, where a person can commit crimes and all they have to do is say, well, you know what, I was, you know, insane at the time. You can, you know, go shoot up a school and they have to do a mental evaluation. You know, that mental evaluation, you know, sets in as to whether or not they're going to get life in prison or they're going to get, you know what I'm saying, the electric chair. But if you done knocked off that many people, you know, you need to go. But this is this man's system, right? But this is 2 Timothy chapter 3. This is something I'm about to pull up here real quick. It says godlessness in the last days. That's the title on this thing. It says this know also. 2 Timothy chapter 3 verse 1. This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, incontinent. There's that word right there. Incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good. Let me get this word incontinent. Let me see. It is G193. Yep, powerless, without self-control. Yeah, that's exactly what it means. You don't have no self-control to say, well, damn, you know what I'm saying? Like, shit, this is my student. And how would I feel as a parent if his teacher was, you know, giving him drugs? First off, we ain't just talking about the box, but you giving him drugs. And then now all of a sudden, we need to, you know, to have a mental evaluation on this bitch because she's. But that's their, you know, that's Esau's go-to when they do, you know, heinous crimes and shit. That's Esau's go-to. They fall back on the law that they came up with, you know? Okay, but it says, you know, just finishing it out. Verse 4 says that they will be traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof, from such turn away. See? And if I'm not mistaken, I'm trying to think, I think her husband knew about this shit if this is the same person. Either way, you know, these Shedemites, man, they and so imagine how many Jakes really got hung back in slavery with the so-called white woman, because they've always had that fetish about dealing with Jake. Imagine how many, and Jake didn't have no choice too in a lot of the matters, man, because she was basically like, hey, you gonna give me some of that rod, or I'm gonna go and tell my father that you raped me. Matter of fact, that's in the movie what's that, Mandingo. If you want to look at a good slave movie and the so-called white woman getting down, matter of fact, she ended up getting pregnant by Jake. And that nigga baby came out looking like a raisin. And that husband went fucking crazy, man. That's a good watch. If you get a chance, I think it came out in like 1976 or some shit like that. But watch Mandingo and you'll get an idea of what it was like, you know what I'm saying, with, you know, men being sold on auction blocks. Because matter of fact, in the scene where the guy Mandingo was being sold, I don't want to tell the movie, but you know, it's an older movie. You can watch it. It's still a good watch if you get a chance. But he was on the auction block, and it was, you know, mostly men out there that was bidding on this guy. But it was a woman. She was bidding on him, and she came up. She grabbed his rod and everything, and it was like, "Good God, woman, have some, some have some dignity, some shit to that extent." But she was like, "Yeah, I got to check the product." And it's another movie too. It's plenty. I can't think of this other movie. But it was this one, this lady was a straight slave owner, and she didn't have no husband. And she wasn't dealing with the field hands. She wasn't dealing with the so-called white men that she had over her plantation, because she had so-called white men, you know, over the slaves. But she wasn't dealing with none of those slaves. She was sending out into the cabin, you know, and they was coming up to the big house. And she would be sending, you know, like three, 4 dudes would be knocking her off at one time per night. She had slaves doing her all kinds of dirty. Like straight up. And this is the mentality of the so-called white woman, man. You know what I'm saying? They've always had that fetish for Jake, and now you're starting to see where that's really happening you know. That's why a lot of these Edomites, they're pissed right now. Because matter of fact, I just came from the plantation, but I had to deal with this Edomite earlier today. And so, you know, I had to take him somewhere, actually. I'm driving. You know, I kind of be listening to talk radio or whatever, the little news and shit. So, some lady on the news, she was an Edomite too. She called the president Mr. Trump. And he was just sitting there upset as hell. She should be calling him President Trump. I'm like, God, I ain't say shit to that now. I ain't give a fuck. But at the same time that he was saying that, we was, driving, and he seen, we both looking. And as he was saying it, because I was kind of like, I look at the look on this motherfucking face. It was a young Jake in the park with a fine little Edomite girl, little so-called white woman, And he was looking at that shit, man. He had that look on his face like, God damn it. You know what I'm saying? Because it's another little Edomite too that worked with us. And he tries to avoid, or he tries to keep her away from me, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? Not knowing the hell she be trying to kick it to me, And then we have to work together anyway. So it's kind of like he don't want her around me like that because he understands that, okay, she's actually attracted to so-called black men. And he tries his hardest to keep her away from me. You know what I'm saying? But I don't work with him like that. It's rare that I'm even around him. I don't want to be around him. You know what I'm saying? But, some days we do work together because, if it's shorthanded, I'll have to help them out. But I'm generally by myself. But I noticed that. You know what I'm saying? But, yeah, the so-called white woman, hey, she's getting down out here. But let me grab this one, too. Because this is why they use that defense of, and she, she may not be able to teach. I know who knows? That bitch might get a teaching job again. That's how they get down. They'll reinstate that bitch. She'll do a little bit of community service or some shit. Whatever the case, They don't get the time that we get, though. But this is, let me start at verse 3. Psalm 73:3. For I was envious at the foolish when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. And you do get envious sometimes, when you see that shit. But the Lord said, fret not. You know what I'm saying? They don't get off into what these heathen are doing, man, because they're going to be mown down like the grass, roughly paraphrasing. It says there, verse 4, for there are no bands in their death, but their strength is firm. They are not in trouble as other men, neither are they plagued like other men. And that's the point that I wanted to make, because they're not in trouble like us. They not. If that was a so-called black woman or a Hispanic or a Native American woman, that shit would have been plastered all over the news. Because they tried to hide this particular story. They haven't been doing a whole bunch on it, but I did remember it. I remember it when it first happened. And she's not the only one. That's been shit the past 5 years. All you've been seeing is so-called white women in the news for doing shit to their students. Sleeping with these they're. But again, these women, that's why the women shouldn't be around men like that. Even at these jobs. Why you think it's so much adultery that happens at these jobs? Because a woman is around another man for 8 hours a day, and women just don't, if a man is giving her, and especially if he's, attracted to her, if she sees him to be a nice looking, and he's throwing her compliments and doing, come on, bro. That's why the divorce rate is so high in America, because these women shouldn't be around men like that. Another man shouldn't be around another man's husband, wife like that, Salakia. There's a scripture that I think it's in the book of Sirach, if I'm not mistaken. It says, sit not with another man's wife. Matter of fact, I seen an incident from the damn neighbors. And I'm talking about these are old ass neighbors too. In their damn 70s. The old man shit, he was mad as hell. His wife was talking with the neighbor. Yeah, I heard that nigga cussing her ass out. I was like, God damn, so you still got that fire and desire. Let me see how it's worded. If I can't find it, but I mean, roughly paraphrasing, you're not supposed to be. Yep, here we go, right here. Sirach 8, 9 and 9, also known as the Book of Sirach. Ecclesiasticus, also known as the Book of Sirach. It says, "Sit not at all with another man's wife." See, nor sit down with her in thine arms, and spend not thy money with her at the wine, lest thine heart incline unto her, and so through thy desire thou fall into destruction, because that's exactly what you're going to fall into if you're dealing with another man's woman and going up into it's another one in Proverbs. Let where it talks about jealousy in chapter 6. I think it's around 30 or so. Nope. Yep. 6 and 32. Proverbs 6 and 32. But whoso committeth adultery with a woman lacketh understanding. He that doeth it destroyeth his own soul. So those young men that she was sleeping with, if I think she was married, if I'm not mistaken, they was committing adultery with this woman. She was actually committing adultery with them. Now, whether or not they knew she was married, that's another case. But still, it's still adultery. It says, a wound and dishonor shall he get, and his reproach shall not be wiped away. For jealousy is the rage of a man, therefore he will not spare in the day of vengeance. He will not regard any ransom, neither will he rest content, though thou givest many gifts. So when a guy comes across and you talking to his wife, man, and he's not trying to hear nothing about I got some money or I got this for you. Let me pay you this, or let me do this for you. No, he's not trying to hear that. He's out for blood, man. So just a quick little something, man, because this shit is crazy and it's not surprising.
Tonight, the legal team for a former
Look at these
Morgan
Edomites,
County...
though. Look how red this guy is. He's the color of that tie. He's almost as red as her dress. That's how we know these are Edomites. The scriptures talks about how Esau came out red, man. These are the Edomites. And the scriptures talks about how Esau would be the end of the world and Jacob would be the end of, the beginning of it that followeth. This place is done, man. Because they're starting to be put on Front Street now, and social media is not doing them well. That social media is really tearing their asses up. But anyway, I'm going to end off there. I pray that the lesson was edifying. Kwam Yasha Allah and a Bible ball. Shalom.